Hey, how's everybody doing? Um, since I've reached the age of old, occasionally I like to look things up for myself to see, well, what does that mean? Why did this happen? Why did I do that? Why did I think of that? And what is all the verbiage surrounding what I did, what I felt mean? And often that means looking up the etymology of words or phrases. And one of the ones that I thought of recently was cold feet. Cold feet. And there's a reason. There's a reason that I wanted to look it up. I I couldn't understand for my whole life where the phrase cold feet came from. Now, if you look online, and there's so much about it online, when it deals with the physical sensation of cold feet pertaining to chickening out or losing your nerve or losing your courage, they never seem to match up correctly in my head. So to get cold feet means you lost the courage to do something. I'm reading this from a couple of different sites, There's no consensus. Some experts trace the origin of cold feet to the German idiom, which I won't read, but I'll translate, means to get cold feet, meaning to lose courage. And that dates back to the English translation of that phrase to 1878. Although there are listings of that exact phrase being found elsewhere further back in the 1600s, the late 1600s, cold feet. The reason I looked it up is because a light bulb went on in my head. Or is it over my head? Over, around, in my head. Anyway, I suffer or deal with anxiety, stress, not well. I don't deal with it well. That's why I say I suffer from it. But the bottom line is I don't deal with it well. And I've noticed that one of the symptoms, in quotes, symptoms, a physical manifestation of my anxiety is often before I have something like an anxiety attack. I know I'm going to have an anxiety attack because there's a feeling that starts in my feet. And it's like a tingling cold feeling. Now my feet don't necessarily get cold. That's not what happens. But there's a feeling that goes off in my mind saying, your feet are feeling cold. You're about to have an anxiety attack or a panic attack, call it whatever you're going to call it. If I'm not busy, if I don't keep myself busy in life, if I allow myself the luxury of dwelling on things, that tends to lead to obsessing over things. That leads to anxiety, stress, and that leads to anxiety or panic attacks. And it often starts with this feeling I have of my feet being cold, even though they're not cold. So the oldest definition that I found about cold feet was literally the feeling of coldness on your feet, meaning you don't have enough money for shoes. In that instance, back in 1678, I think it was. And then it came into the lexicon of English in the late 1800s, like I said. But nobody has ever said, I haven't seen online as much as I've looked, the correlation between literal anxiety and the feeling of cold feet. I think there's a correlation. I think that's where it comes from. Me sitting alone, dwelling on things in my house, came to this startling conclusion. Cold feet. I bet, I would bet $100 that that is where the saying comes from. somebody who was prone to panic attacks or anxiety attacks and happened to mention it, or somebody wrote it down, and then it was passed along and passed along. And even though it went through different permutations of meaning, and some of it literal meaning, like, oh, he didn't have shoes, so his feet were cold, and he couldn't do this or he couldn't do that. He kept him from doing something. I think that getting cold feet, especially since the way I experience it with my own stress, anxiety, and occasional panic, is my feet feel cold. I mean, it's all up here. It's not in my feet, but it manifests itself in a way that I know that a panic attack is coming when it feels like my feet are cold. Yes, I should have way better things to do than ruminate upon this kind of thing. But it gave me something to look up. If anybody finds something out about this specific function of the correlation between panic attacks and the sensation of having cold feet, if it's mentioned anywhere online, I haven't seen it yet, but if you do, drop me a note. Let me know, because now I'm really curious. I mean, there's a whole bunch of stuff going back pretty far, but none of it correlates to stress and anxiety, except when specific examples that were given online. Somebody involved in a card game in the 1800s, they would often say, "Oh, he folded because he got cold feet." Somebody leaving somebody at the altar, it happened because he or she got cold feet. Was that panic related? I mean, actually physically manifesting as cold feet in that person's mind. I'm really curious. Somebody let me know. Anyhow, until the next time, love you guys.